Welcome back to the Purpose Walk podcast. My name is Dr. Ava Eagle Brown, and I'm just so excited about the guests that we're having on the podcast. As you guys know, we really just keep it authentic, we keep it honest, we don't edit, we just keep it unfiltered and share with others of you across the world. We go as far as New York, Australia, and just share with people, other ordinary human beings who are doing extraordinary things. And today is none other. Today I have on the sofa here, Davina Louis, although it's virtual sofa. And Davina grew up in High Wycombe, Buckinghamshire in the UK all her life. She's a mother of 4 and a wife. She's a victim of sexual abuse at a young age, a very common thread on this podcast. She built the courage to put a post out on social media about the abuse, and the response she received from ladies and men her age and the older generation was so overwhelming. Because of that, she set up an Instagram page called Dav Relates. I love the name. She hosted her first talk in her community, which was really successful. Her goal is to be able to help the younger generation, explaining to them and making them aware of their boundaries. Like, I just love this. The overall theme all day has been boundaries, helping the older generation who still find it difficult to handle sexual abuse after so many years. And Davina, it is a pleasure to have you here. It is such a worthy conversation. And I love the name because I can relate. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Wow. I just had a thrill. Something just happened through my body that chilled somewhere, because I've interviewed 4 women today. You are the 4th woman. And every woman so far, I didn't put out a sexual abuse call. I just said pain to purpose. And every woman, white woman, Asian woman, Black woman, it has no color, no creed, so irrespective of what's happening in the American uprising around color, here is something that has no definition when it comes to race or creed: sexual abuse. Why do you think there is so much coming out now? Because I think it's always been there, hovering in the background. What shifted for you in particular? What shifted? What prompted you? Welcome to the podcast, but what prompted you to go on Instagram or on social media and unearth that dirty little secret?
Okay, so the reason why it was my mum called me one day and explained that something had happened to one of our great friends' daughter, and she said, "I don't know what I would do if that was you." And I froze. When you try and talk to continue a conversation, to not make them realize that there's something there.
They've touched a nerve, right?
Yeah.
Hit the nerve.
And my mum was, Davina, and I was like, trying my hardest to just continue a conversation. She said, "Have you got something to tell me?" I told her, and then what happened was she put the phone down.
How old were you?
I was, so I'm 39 now. I only told them about 5 years ago. So I wasn't a very young age, but I told her. She put the phone down, and I automatically rang another an auntie, crying, saying, "I think my mum doesn't want to talk to me anymore." And it wasn't that. She was so shocked, and she couldn't control. She just couldn't bear the thought of what had happened to me, and she had no idea. And it was her half brother. So
no. I want you to pause, because we have to unpack this. We have to unpack this, because some people think that when you come out and talk about sexual abuse when you're older, they're like, "You made it up. Why did you wait so long?" And
oh, wow.
I can relate to you, because I told my mom when I was about 30, I think it was, or 30 something. No, it was older than 30, actually. My son was about 36, actually. She'd come to England, and I was going to give birth to my son. She's flown from Jamaica. And I didn't tell my mom. Other people knew, but I didn't tell my mom. And my reason was, she had loved my father so much, she wouldn't believe me, and I just think she wouldn't be able to handle it. And I felt I carried that burden for a long time.
Yeah.
Because I felt I didn't want to unburden that on her. Did you feel that way?
My main reason was not being believed,
Mm.
because he was this, I don't like to call him uncle, he was this relative that, you know, if he was around, people would find him funny, etc., etc. So I was scared that nobody would believe me.
Yes.
And I was also scared that for my mum as well, like, she would feel guilty. My father would feel guilty that he wasn't around. And this happened when they were going to work, where my mum would leave me, my brother, okay, at home while they went to work, earning a living, and this person came in pretending he was helping to look after us, etc. So it was difficult to tell. I think it was more difficult to tell my dad more than my mum. Definitely. My dad was really upset, like emotional, like crying. So I think it was definitely what pushed me to do it, though, shall I say. It was International Women's Day, and I had been made redundant a week before, and I was angry, I was upset, and it was coming to the point where he was going to be out, this guy was going to be out of prison a month later.
So hold on. You're too fast, honey. Was he convicted?
So yes, sorry.
Oh, hold on, wait, girl, baby girl, wait. Let me just let's just get there. Hold on.
So
wait, hold on. So hold on. What age were you when it happened?
12.
So you're just going to high school or just in primary school?
That's correct. And he made me feel like it was normal, it was okay. And not until I had sex education in secondary school, I was like, oh, wait here. This is not, this right here. I instantly felt disgusting. I felt nasty. I felt absolutely disgusted with myself.
You're giving me chills because I just, go on, continue. Because I can relate to that one, like, so clearly.
Yeah, and it really used to make me quite angry with myself to like, at what point did you not realize this was wrong? I was questioning myself. So yeah, what happened was after that phone call, obviously, he continued to keep going to my mum's house as normal. And my mum told him to move, get away. You know what you did to Davina. Instead of him saying something else, he said, it's all in her mind.
Ooh.
My mum said, what is in her mind?
Exactly, because if your mom hadn't told him what had happened, how could he think? How could he know?
He doesn't know.
Yes.
So from that moment, my mum went to the police station, formed a complaint. And at that stage, she rang me and she said, I'm at the police station because he turned up at the house. I asked him to leave. He wanted to know why. And they want you to make a formal complaint. So in a way, it was taken out of my hands a little bit. But I do not regret that. It really has, I probably would have been still sat here today, not saying anything. So my mum took that.
1 second, I love that because, and for those of us who are watching, I'm going to stop your points only because I want to hone home a point.
Of course, yeah.
Those of us who are watching, who have gone through or have endured sexual abuse, and you're sitting there thinking, well, it's historic, I can't do anything. There is historic abuse cases. There are historic abuse cases that have been prosecuted. People are literally being prosecuted for historic cases that can be found. So don't suffer anymore in silence. You don't have to do that. I also want to unpack this because I remember saying to somebody when they read my book, they're like, but why did you not know at your age that your father touching and putting your breast in his mouth was wrong? And I said, I couldn't have. Nobody spoke to me at that time. I grew up in a Jamaican household, well, in several households, and nobody spoke to me at that age. It was about probably 10, 12. Nobody had spoken about sex to me or the body or whatever. My mother I grew up in a dark era, Jamaican dark era. We're talking in the 70s where nobody talks to you about certain things. It was never talked about. So I just knew, like you said, when he did certain things, I knew it felt wrong. I didn't know what it was necessarily, but it felt sickening. It just felt dirty and it felt wrong. Yes. It was when I was in PSHE class that I understood certain things, right? Like when the teacher, told me where my vagina was, for example. I thought my vagina was the surface, that front part. right?
Yeah.
I didn't know it was an invaginated thing. So I understand. And here's the thing, we've never met, we've never spoken, but I
Never.
understand exactly what you said by what you said that you didn't understand. It was when you were in school and you were doing PSH class and you understood fully. And some people who question persons like us, and yes, I agree that there are some people who come forward and cry sexual abuse, and it's not true. I agree with that.
There are people out there.
There are people, but it's so sad for people like us who've historically endured it and were afraid to speak because of fear of being disbelieved, fear of being, I felt it was my fault for a long time. I was wearing too short shorts in the house, but I'm around my father, so I'm supposed to be okay. Yeah. Continue. I just had to hold that point across because it is such, continue.
Yeah, so at that point, I went to the police station, done the statement. It got to going to court. And I would like to say, going to court was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. But I am proud, so proud of myself that I done it. One of the things that made me really quite emotional was they called upon my brother. And my brother and I are 18 months apart, and I had no idea. When my mum mentioned it to him, he then called her back and said, "This all makes sense, Mum."
Wow.
He used to send me upstairs to play, or he used to send me downstairs to play. And it bothered me that my brother, it triggered then my brother. Because we are quite close. So to know that he's now got that on his mind, like he could have done something. I know what he's like. So those are the sort of things he was probably thinking.
Brothers are protective naturally by nature of this.
Naturally. So he had to go to court and say his piece. It was over 3 days, and I went first, my brother, and then my mum went. It got to the day where he had his say on the Friday and the Thursday, sorry. And my victim support lady called me and she said, "He's spoken, they've come to a decision. He's been found guilty." And my first...
What moment like for you?
Oh, the first thing was, I asked how many people believed me. That was the first thing I asked, because I was so scared that like somebody didn't believe me or and she said, "Can I tell you something? Everyone, every single person in the jury believed you, even his barrister believed you." And that definitely gave me some sort of, do you know what, Dav, like you have done this, it was a struggle, but look where it's got you today. And he was sentenced to 6 years, but obviously in the UK, you only do half your sentence. So he done 3 years. He came out last year, April, so he's been out a year now. Within that year, can you believe this man came in my area where I live, where he knows he's not allowed to? He was less than a 30 bike ride from my home.
Wow.
Somebody told me 1 week, and I thought he's not going to do it again the next week. He won't do it again. Come from work, driving, and I spotted him. I pulled my car up. I pulled my phone out because I kept thinking, I need evidence.
Yes, but nobody's going to believe you.
No one's going to believe me. The police are not going, we'll give him a warning, etc., etc. And that's what they did. Gave him a warning. Not once, but he did it again. He called out to my brother and he was given a warning. So the man now is still living life out here, knowing that since he's been out of prison, he's not
violated his
rules. He's not followed the rules. He's not, he's broken certain things, but yeah, he's still out there. And it upsets me because I don't know who he's around, what children are around, it hurts.
My bigger concern is Does he live near to you?
Yeah.
Or he lives near to you?
He still lives in High Wycombe.
Okay.
And he lives around the area where my child goes to school.
Mm.
And he was put back in that area where he was living
I
before.
thought there was a rule to move sexual abusers because he's on the register, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
So he should be moved somewhere else.
That's correct. I didn't quite go into it. It got to a point where the victim support would send.
I don't want to go into too much because remember this is going on. Yeah.
Yes, I understand.
And I have to the point where as well. Right?
Yeah, no worries. It got to the point where victim support would send me yearly updates. And I was like, why do you keep sending me these? I don't want to know anything about him. I don't. So when they did tell me where he was going, I was just like, you know what? If that's where he's going to go, he's just going to go. And I can't
do anything. So I'm going to come to how you were going to tell me that he was coming out of court, but before out of prison, and you were made redundant. Before you get to that point, have you sought help? Have you had counseling?
So this one now, I seeked help through relationship issues prior to me even telling anybody about 7 years ago. And during my sessions, that is when it was known to myself that the sexual abuse was the problem. And then I think a year or two after, that's when it came out with my mum and everybody. He went to prison, like I said, but I thought, yeah, I'm fine now. He's been sent away. I'm going to be okay. It's fine. It was like 3 months in, and I was now already thinking, what am I going to do when he comes out? I had to go back to therapy. And my therapy actually ends next month. So I've been doing it for now 2.5 years.
How are you feeling? Are you ready to be unsupported, technically speaking?
It's
okay.
There's certain things I have overcome. So I'm now able to speak about it very openly. I'm able to say support or have a chat with somebody about it. I've got to that stage. When I have my down days where the depression will kicking out of the blue to the point where I have to question myself, like Dav, what is wrong with you today? That is where I think I would need that extra support. But I am willing to give it a try.
Yes.
Without it, and any sign of me feeling like I'm, going back to where I was, then I will definitely seek help again.
Thank you so much.
It has helped me so much.
I'd really recommend that. But here's what I want to say to every sexual predator who is listening or watching, or anybody who knows one, is that you damage lives forever. The residue is always there. It lingers. My dad is dead, and let me tell you something, it still impacts me. It's impacted me sexually. It's impacted me in a lot of ways. It impacts my fears. It impacts a lot of things. And whilst my sexual abuse is not the major thing that impacts me, I was raped at gunpoint. And that has, and I'm a life coach, and I train and I work with persons who have been through a lot of stuff. But I realize that the duality, you exist in two dualities where the remnants of that still lingers. What is important, however, Davina, is that you don't allow that to overshadow your life. And so it's always important. So right now I'm in talking therapy, right? Because I realized I need to go back, but I have not done it for years. And certain things will trigger that. So just remember that because you're triggered doesn't mean that you're in a bad place. It just means that there's something that you need to work on. But I want you to be cognizant of that. And it's good that you're taking the space to try it on your own, because that's what I've done for many years. And then something triggered me the other day, and then I went back into talking therapy. And I'm just so proud of the fact that you stood up to this person. You stood up and took your life into control. Tell me how you have 4 kids. How do you care? You have how many kids, sorry?
Yeah, I have 4 children, yeah.
How do you parent? I thought I got that wrong. How do you parent now knowing that these, because from your own experience, let's be real.
Yes.
How do you
Yes.
parent? Because it's a reality for us parents who've been through it. When we parent our kids, there are elements of that spill over into it. Tell me, how do you parent your kids?
Okay, so now that was a very difficult thing for me to do. So my first daughter, who's now going to be 22 next week, she used to always want to sleep over at a friend's house.
Oh, I don't do sleepover.
That took a very, very long time, and bless her, she could not understand.
My daughter, I had that
and
problem.
I tried my best. I tried my best to keep explaining. It got to the point where I then had to sit her down and say, this has happened to mummy, and I don't want it to happen to you. So hence the reason. And I have 3 girls and 1 boy. Wow. And with all my children, I am very open about it. They all know what's happened. It got to the point where uncles would just, bless them, some of them really didn't mean what, they don't mean, can I sit on your lap, uncle? And I'll be looking like this. I'll be staring like that. And I'll have to say, no, that's enough now. Hug, sit down. Hug, sit down. And then they would pick up and they'll go, oh, no. The male, they'll sit down, sit here. And it's very difficult because you don't want to, they're very young. So you don't want to say too much, but then on the other hand, you want to protect them. So now I am...
Develop, tell them openly. So I tell my kids openly, do not, so I practice, kiss me on my cheek.
Of course.
You kiss everybody on the cheek. Well, those are the people who you will end up kissing, okay? Yes. And I taught my daughter very early on, do not sit in anybody's lap. No uncle's lap, no auntie's lap. My son knows. And there was a time when we could think about it being just girls, but now it's girls and boys.
And boys.
So I teach both of my kids the same thing. Yeah. And both of them know. My son, he's 8. I don't think he quite understands what sexual abuse yet, but he's heard it around, right? But he understands his parts of his body and how nobody should touch. But you must be open to them about it. And you must tell them, don't, as a rule, not even your father, you don't sit in anybody's lap. And so when that is told and that is carried through, then they won't end up sitting in anybody's lap. And don't apologize for it to any adult.
No. And thank goodness I'm around people that understand as well. So some of them, they even say it before, no, sit here. There's some of them already know. But the parenting side, I have found quite difficult because I've had to deal with my own issues while parenting them. And I have found that quite hard, definitely, without a doubt.
There are lots of support systems out there for that, as you know. We're not in schools anymore, but schools do have a lot of talking therapy for children, and don't be afraid to use them. I mean, I have done it with my own kids. We do talking therapy because it's so powerful, because there's some things that kids want to express that they don't necessarily want to tell you, not because they don't trust, but they don't want to hurt as well. And sometimes when parents are present, we're not giving the children the full chance to just be able to unburden what's bothering them. So you have started an Instagram page. Tell us about that.
So yes, I started the Instagram page just after I put my talk out, because I just put it out there thinking, I just want to let people know what's happened, and if there's anyone else out there suffering, they're not on their own. And then everybody else, I got such an overwhelming reaction from it, and everyone's like, Dav, you'll be great at doing something, open up an Instagram page, etc. So I did. Our confidence has just literally taken over. So when this opportunity came up, I thought, if this doesn't push you, Dav, then I don't know, but I'm really now trying to really push myself much further. I put posts out there. A lot of people then get back in touch with me explaining, how they feel. They're happy and thanking me because they haven't got the courage to speak themselves. Yes. So they're thanking me, saying, I can't do it, but thank you
for doing it
for doing it for us.
Wow. I love that. I love that, because when I came out about my story, I was afraid. It was on television, and that was nerve-wracking. And my father, was alive, and I did it back in Jamaica. I flew from London. I published my book, and I went back and I did it. And do you know what? He died a few months later, and I felt relief. I felt relief, and it's selfish, but I didn't kill him. You know, he had a natural cause, but I just felt relief because I felt as though I could live.
Yeah.
And the fact that even a lot of his family members didn't believe, even today, they'll never believe. And that's okay with me because I know what happened. And so I just love that you are spreading this light and you're talking to the young and talking to the old as well, because for a lot of the older generation, for them, is that they grew up in it as well. Some of them were abused themselves, and it became the new norm, and they parented the way they knew how. But also in the Afro-Caribbean community, we don't talk about it enough. We are not, it's embarrassing. We have this mindset that we don't wash our dirty linen in public. And so a lot of perpetrators are allowed to get away with it. And I'm just glad for persons like yourself who are saying, you know what, I can relate to what you're saying. And I'm no longer going to sit down and be silent. So what's the bigger plan?
The bigger plan. My bigger plan, I would love to talk in schools. I would really love to do that. And even speak to one-on-one with, like I said, the older generation. I don't know, I've got this thing, drawing. I just feel like I could, the people I've spoken to, the older generation, have really spoken to me quite openly about it, which shocked me because I'm younger. So I always used to think, why would you want to speak to somebody younger? So just me speaking to somebody older about it and just letting them talk and get it off their chest, that would help. So anything like that, and keep doing what I'm doing here, speaking out on podcasts and things like that, and making sure everyone hears us.
Wow, I love that. Knows our voice and hears our voice. Davina, it's been such an amazing, powerful interview. I think you'd make a great speaker, by the way. Let me answer this.
Thank you.
What would you tell your younger self? If you had to do this all over, what would you do differently?
Ask questions from a young age. Because I think with my parents, if I would have asked, they would have felt no way of telling me about certain things. Then I would have known certain things. Also, not to beat myself up so much about certain things.
Yeah,
especially that situation. I wish I was how I am strong now. I wish I was stronger then.
But it wasn't your fault.
I know. I've now come to that. I understand.
You were strong because you held that together for such a long time. That was strength. I want you to realize that. For you to hold something like that and not end up in a mental hospital and not kill yourself, that was strength. So you were strong. You were so strong that you were protecting your parents. Did you realize that? That was strength.
I've never really thought of it like that.
That's why I'm a life coach, girlfriend. That was strength.
I never thought of it.
That was strong. You were so strong at 12 that for all of those many years, you were strong enough to be protecting your parents.
Without a doubt.
And that's what you did. I'm so glad you came. I love the intergenerational thing and the whole thing of the older and the younger generation. Maybe you should bring them together to have a discussion. Maybe that's something that can happen, is to organize a group of the younger to tell the older what they feel, but also get the older to advocate and tell the younger ones now, like your children, that you know what, you must speak up, that we wish we had. So I think that you're onto something there with the two sets of generations. And I think you need to look at that from a different lens. I just want to drop that into your spirit.
Thank you very much.
I just want to honor you. We're going to put all of the details for how to connect onto your Instagram page below. So if you email that to my secretary, I'd be more than happy to have that. Any last words you want to share before we wrap up?
If this does resonate with anybody that hasn't spoken out, not even through counseling, please, please speak to someone, please. Even if you don't want to go to counselling, at least tell someone else. Just, it really does make a massive difference. It really does.
It does. And I think when I spoke up myself, a lot of people were so excited and were so glad that it was thank you. And I'm sure you've gotten that. Thank you for speaking up, because that was my story. And so for those of us who are on the podcast and those who are listening or even on the replay, we're just glad that Davina Louis dropped by today, because her story is so powerful and she has overcome so much, and her voice is so strong. Her voice is heard. And she's out here saying, you know what, it's not okay. It's not okay. And for those of you who are sitting there on this historic abuse, here's an example of why you should step forward. It's Dr. Ava Eagle Brown on the Purpose Walk podcast, where we have persons all over the world who literally are saying, we have been through this, but we are stepping forward in purpose. And this was brought to you by the Mango Girl, Royal Threads, and Simply Naturals, because I really want you to understand that we have to step forth into our calling, and we have to support each other as women and men across the globe who are having a difficult time. So if any nugget resonated with you today, please comment below. Davina's details are going to be there. Please follow her Instagram and help her to get the story out. And until then, it's Dr. Ava Brown, and I will see you soon.